The Express.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Express podcast. We are very fortunate to be joined by one of my best friends, somebody that was in my wedding. His name's Tyler Ferguson. Big round of applause. Excited to have him. We just quick little backstory on how we know each other. Like I said, we're best friends. We played at Vanderbilt together. Ferg pitched there and has really just a pretty amazing story of perseverance, faith, and his journey through the minor leagues and now in the major leagues with the Athletics, formerly known as the Oakland A's, now just the Athletics. But we appreciate you coming on.
Just a bunch of athletes. Yeah. They're just the athletes.
Definition of athletes.
Yeah, just the athletes.
All right, so first things first, I want you to talk a little bit about kind of your younger life experience growing up in California. I know most people don't know that you competed in golf when you were a little bit younger as well as baseball. So you just want to go through a little bit as you were younger and kind of that story for us?
Sure. Grew up around the game. My dad was a junior college third base coach, outfield coach. So started bat boying when I was probably 6 or 7. Me and one of my best friends, we started bat boying and did that. Grew up always playing the game. Didn't play a ton of travel ball, and really got into golf and competitive golf like 8th grade year because I stopped playing football. I was a little more scrawny back then and chose to play golf. So played some competitive golf. Have one win under my belt in a tournament, Turtle Rock Country Club. Grew up in the same area as Bryson DeChambeau, so played against him. And for reference, 8th grade year, played a 9-hole tournament at the end of the year, and I got like tied for second at like 7 over par for 9, and Bryson shot even or 1 under. So he was just like that far better than everybody else at 14 years old. And it was, yeah.
That's
so
wild.
After that, kind of got into high school and played baseball full time. Got a lot bigger my sophomore year of high school and started pitching my junior year and started to get recruited after that junior year. Was able to make all my recruiting visits and have the schools pay for them, not commit super early, which is nice.
Yeah, so tell me about that, though, because obviously recruiting is like way, way, way different now. When did you like kind of realize that baseball was going to be like the moneymaker for you? And then talk about like the recruiting process, especially like when you're a California kid and you come all the way to Nashville, Tennessee. It's like pretty much across the world for y'all.
Yeah, I mean, I always say I got lucky not getting recruited early. So my junior year, kind of going into the season, Long Beach State was like the first team to start recruiting me because of a small school in Fresno that had connections with him. So started to get recruited and then went and played the area code games. And that's where Corb saw me, and a lot of these schools that were a little bit bigger started to see me and started recruiting me. So Corb's called me after that. Serrano went from Fullerton out to Tennessee. So that was a place I visited. Oregon, Santa Barbara, and Stanford. Stanford was the place I grew up wanting to go. But after taking my visits, Vandy's Vandy. So I kind of got a sense for how good we were going to be or how good that program was going. And I didn't feel like Stanford was going that same direction. So after meeting Corbs and DJ, it was just me and my mom went on that visit with me and we were sold right away.
Yeah.
Were y'all in the same class?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, same class. Dude, it's so funny you say that too, because when I didn't take as many visits as you. People thought I was trash back in high school. So it is what it is. But the difference when I showed up on campus for my first visit, it was just different than everywhere else. Like the attention to detail, like everything about it was like this program is on the rise and it's not going to slow down anytime soon. And then you started seeing like the other guys that felt the same way and like our class coming in and just the depth of our class. And most people don't know, like Matt Olson was in our class. He was supposed to come. He ended up signing at a high school. It was just like a deep class. And
Could
I think,
you imagine?
Yeah.
Dude,
That would have been
That's an insane. I mean, your roster was already insane.
I know. And like you add him into the mix, it would have been crazy. But I think that was what was special about our group there, was just like we kind of came on campus as freshmen and were able to make an impact at a high level program, which was a pretty big deal, honestly, at that time.
Yeah, I mean that team was so good with Yaz and Connor Harrell having some seniors around that kind of helped us kind of get that momentum and take that program where we did over those 3 years, winning 50+ games, winning the national championship. But yeah, our class was ridiculous. I always reference, I'm like, yeah, I was with Bueller, Fulmer, Swanson. That was my class. But I was the sixth guy drafted from that class, and I was in the 6th round.
Yeah.
And it's just like we were stacked.
It was absurd, and it was so much fun. Like you said, our success there of setting the win record in the SEC at 26-3 our freshman year, which is absurd if you think about it.
Broken or hasn't been broken.
Yeah. And then obviously winning the Natty in 2014, runners up in 15. I think we won 158 games in 3 years. I think that's the total. I feel like I've done that before.
That's insane.
Was it 52, 54, and 54?
Yeah, I think so.
So maybe 160?
Yeah. And what's wild about that first year, we won 52 and we played maybe 20 less games or something like ridiculous. Yeah. Like it was absurd how good we were. But you want to talk about a little bit, I know because your experience of Vandy was kind of up and down, honestly, at times, like from your freshman year to what you did your sophomore year and then onto your junior. Kind of like break that down for us.
Yeah. Freshman year, didn't pitch much overall. I think I probably racked up like 20, 25 innings, but made 3 or 4 midweek starts, pitched out of the pen during the midweek here and there. Got some good experience. Got to travel, which was nice, but I was like, I don't know, was it 27 guys travel? It was probably 27 dude. Like, I wasn't playing, but I was on the roster. And then sophomore year ended up getting into the rotation. So it was Beatty, Fulmer, me, and Bueller was our midweek guy for most of the year. And yeah, I established myself as the Sunday guy. I was able to pretty much go 5 and dive, was the goal, because Fulmer was going 9, Beatty, was going to throw, and we weren't going to use our bullpen much the first few days. So if I got us 5 quality innings, it was, a good day. And then Rav would come in and throw 2 or 3 good ones, and Stoney would come finish it off. So we were just stacked. But was able to be a starter, and that was fun. And then junior year rolls around and have my fair share of struggles with, getting the yips and just trying to figure out how to throw the ball near the plate. And so that was a little bit of a different experience and a little bit rougher of a year, but overall just an incredible experience.
Yeah. Just because I was like, so obviously like it's personal because of not only our friendship, but just like we were there together. I don't think people realize like Ferg's sophomore year with how he threw the ball, even though I know he's saying he was 5 and dive, but like how you were throwing it, everyone was like fully anticipating Fulmer, Ferg, and Bueller all being drafted in the first round. Like we were gonna have 3 first-round guys basically on our staff, and that's like pretty unheard of. Like in the same class in the same year, and a lot of people were thinking that he was the best of the bunch. Talk a little bit more about your junior year, if you're open to sharing, like, because I mean, dude, that like to be able to come back from that, like, I wouldn't wish that upon anybody. Like, I wouldn't wish that upon my worst enemy, let alone my best friend. Like
anybody.
Yeah,
I've seen it. I've seen people go through it here and there, and everyone who's experienced it has a different experience with it. But mine was like junior fall. I was through fine, and then I got pneumonia around Christmas time, so it was kind of like the trigger of it. It was like I got pneumonia, I lost like 15 pounds. We get back to school in January, and I'm like skinny and sick, and like trying to figure out how to throw the ball hard again and get healthy for the season. And that kind of just triggered it of like overthinking and trying to, instead of just like waiting and being patient and being like, once I'm healthy, I'll be back to normal. I kind of was like trying to push through some stuff, and all of a sudden just overthinking, anxiety, all of that, the stress of, being drafted and trying to perform. And then it kind of just snowballs and just gets worse and worse. And Kyle Wright, I think, was my catch partner for most of that year. And he was a freshman that year. And my gosh, I was just selling balls, like ankle burner over his head. He's got worried about ricochet off the bricks behind him. Like, I put him through some stuff that freshman year of having to play catch with me every day.
Another first round pitcher on the docket. Dude, I mean, but in like seeing where it was and like where it is now, it's actually like amazing. And obviously we're going to get into it. It's just like a testament of faith, hard work, like your experience, and it truly is special. So I guess just kind of like jump into that. Your journey is a long one, right? Like from getting drafted in 2015 to making your debut in 2024. Like that's the 9-year window with COVID in the middle of it, with like you did indie ball, you've done winter leagues. Like what was the toughest part about that 9-year window, essentially?
The toughest part, that's a good question. A lot of unknowns. I mean, I think, obviously the yips weren't like I had them for 2 months and they were gone. It was like a 4-year journey of my whole time with the Rangers was like either I was hurt or I was battling the yips, and then I'd have a couple months of success, and then it was like that rotation of, okay, I can't stay healthy, so I can't even like work on pitching or like try and get better. And so like that whole stretch of probably 2015 through 2019 spring training, when I finally got released, like that was like just a really long, rough stretch of, I think I had 3 or 4 injuries when I was with the Rangers, like rotator cuff strain, oblique, tore my lat, and going through like that combination of things was like just such a struggle. Such a struggle. But obviously, once I got released, it was like a huge, not like a wake-up call, but it was like almost a relief once I like realized, oh, it's not the end of the world. And it kind of was like freeing in a way. And then I got to go play indie ball, and that was a blast.
Yeah, I just want to like dive in on that too. What sort of like foundation or like a person, a motivation, a strong point for you to like that you fell back on kind of through those rough 4 years and then even grinding more recently?
Yeah, I mean, faith. I mean, always having a strong faith has been key to kind of, go back to and realize that even though I'm going to the field every day feeling like this is everything, I need to do this, but knowing that like this really is nothing in the grand scheme of life. And so I think going back to faith has always been really, really helpful through those really hard moments, for sure.
Yeah, Ferg, what does your support system look like? Like, obviously, you got people like Dansby and then the people you play with and then your boys back home. How do those people sort of help you and guide you along the way, just because it has been such a long journey? And, like, we were talking, obviously, in spring training, and we are like, hey, you were saying, if I can just get an opportunity, like, if I just get some big league time, like, I'm pretty confident that I'm going to be able to do what I need to do. How has your support system sort of helped you over that entire journey? Because a lot of people, I mean, what's the average MLB career?
Short.
Yeah.
Right? Like they say NFL stands for not for long. So it's like the MLB is just the same thing. You know what I mean? So that's kind of tough too, because you're a family man. Like, we're getting a little older. So what's your support system just kind of through that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot there of like I think there's like almost 24,000 people have made it to the big leagues, but how many of those guys have more than 100 days or something? Not as many. And then support system, I mean, family's been huge. My wife has been my rock for the last like 7+ years. And she's so good at helping me with like the mental side and the emotion side that has really helped me grow since 2020, when I started to like pitch and have some more success. Just her support, her like telling me, have fun, don't forget to have fun, this really doesn't matter, like I don't care if you suck and I don't care if you can play baseball. Like she's just such so grounded and so balanced. Like she's a therapist, so it really helps. Of like,
Yeah, I was about to say,
Yeah, I was gonna say.
you better
Therapizing
mention
me
that part.
in a way.
You better mention that part. She actually knows professionally what she's talking about.
Bring them back a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that, I mean, it's so helpful. Like I wouldn't be where I am without the support and the help that she's given me over the years. Like she's incredible. She's an incredible therapist, first of all. And the things she's taught me, we'll get into like some of the mindfulness stuff of like meditation and like that has really, really been helpful over the last like 2 years. I've been doing that. But yeah, I mean, Tay's a stud.
Dude, whenever she comes to
love her.
spring, I'm like, all right, let me like, if Ferg's like busy doing something or still at the
5
field,
minutes?
yeah, like, hey, can we just like chat a little bit about,
on my
something?
mind.
Because dude, it really is amazing. Like, I can only imagine how much she listens to you because she listens to everybody. Like,
Yeah.
her and Mal have a great relationship. Mal loves her. Obviously, when she's in town, like I'm picking her brain about things, and like she's always willing to listen and help. And like, there's been multiple instances when Tay's around and we're like, thank God Taylor's here. Like all three of us are like, thank God Taylor's here because she knows how to handle these situations, and we have no idea.
Florida spring training.
Yeah, all right, tell the story. Tell the story.
So is me, Dance, Mal, and Tay were driving to dinner, I think it was.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like in the rear view mirror, you just see this like 85-year-old man just fall in the middle of the road. And we're like, what just happened? So Dansby like slams on the brakes and we flip around to go help this guy. And Tay first wanted to jump out of the car and like help him. And like, she's like, who do you know? Whose phone number do you know? Where do you live? Like asking all the right questions where me and Dansby would be like, I guess call 911. She's like,
Are you straight,
"We'll
bro?
get you home."
You good?
This guy, like, he didn't know what was going. Like, he definitely had a
His
concussion.
wrist was like limp.
Yeah,
completely
he
limp.
definitely like broke his wrist in half.
So he fell.
Yeah.
Oh no, he
took a
it was so bad. We stopped
Scratches,
because we
like-
didn't want him to be in the road.
Oh.
With it was kind of coming around a curve, so we're like, we don't want him to be in the road laying there.
Yeah.
So like we like stopped with the flashers on, like, and Taylor's like in this like absolute pro mode, dude.
Locked in.
Dude, it was.
Dude.
We basically ended up getting this guy back to his house to his daughter, I want to say, that was like his caretaker. And she's like, I've been telling you can't walk that far away from the house. Like, and he's like, I just wanted to go see like the pond on the other side. We're like, dude.
Yeah, I mean the step was like at least a foot high or higher, and there was just no chance he was gonna make it.
Oh man.
He wasn't moving well, but he was like, "Yeah, I'm fine, and we were like, "Okay, like you're fine." And Tay's like, "No, you're not fine. We're taking you somewhere."
We're all like, yeah, this guy's fine. We'll just get him back up on his feet and he can be on his way. And Taylor's like, we're driving him back to his house. Like, it was.
Yeah, she handled it like a pro.
She probably still has a relationship with that lady. Like, I'm pretty sure they have each other's phone numbers and like probably still talk to this day.
Probably checking in.
I just envision you like in spring training talking to her and be like, yeah, so I find myself walking through the Cubs facility and like there's just math problems on the board and I just find myself like just figuring them out. Like, what does that mean? And she's like, you're just pretty good at simple math. Nothing special.
You like that?
Hey, real quick, Ferg, I was thinking about this. So I know we're kind of going back to your Vanderbilt days, but I mean, you moved across the country, right? Yeah. What was that sort of like, of the part of just the mindset of, okay, I'm moving to the East Coast and then I'm going where, I mean, I guess you have a baseball team, but like, you don't know all the guys that well, like, may know who's in the class or whatever, but just kind of what was that like and how did you navigate that water of not just uncertainty, but also opportunity?
Yeah, I knew nobody because I wasn't big in like the travel circuit or any of that. And I was obviously on the other side of the country. So I didn't know anybody. I was kind of going in there blind. I was just going in there knowing that was the right place for me to go. It was scary moving across the country, but I lucked out because my sister played volleyball. And so she was in junior college in Fresno and she transferred to Belmont right down the road. So we kind of both moved at the same time over there. And so that was nice to always have, like, I had family right down the road, that built-in support system, and family was going to visit a little bit more, which definitely made it easier. But I'm also from like Fresno, California, which is a little more country than probably most people expect California to be. So like kind of the culture shock wasn't too crazy.
Dude, talk about like a God thing though, with having family at Belmont, which is
Yeah,
literally
that's
right down
kinda-
the road. Like,
Perfect.
yeah,
For
the
an
amount of dinners that
opportunity
we
to
would
come out
do
of
and
nowhere.
stuff.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah.
'Cause that's a long way.
Very, very.
Yeah.
All right, so just kind of like moving forward a little bit from getting through obviously the grind of the minor leagues, which is a grind. Like there's no other way to talk about it. And then obviously your time in indie ball and bouncing around. What do you think is the biggest adjustment from going from the minor leagues to the major leagues? Like whether, and it can be literally from clubhouse stuff to like the way you travel, obviously the on-field stuff. Like what has been your experience with that?
I mean, travel is amazing. So much easier. Tired of sitting on Southwest flights, hanging out in the airport all day on every Monday traveling. But no, that's been good. I think the biggest difference is just like the guys are better. The day in and day out, like the hitters are better. That was the biggest adjustment was, I got called up early May and I was striking out a ton of guys in AAA and I couldn't get a swing and miss in the big leagues for the first month I was in the big leagues. Couldn't get almost all of my strikeouts were just guys took fastballs that they were surprised I threw a fastball. Basically, they were all just looking. So that was a big adjustment of learning how to get the swing and miss, how to set guys up, because they're just better. They're able to fight off the really good slider away. They're able to, put a ball in play earlier in that bat that when you make a mistake. So that was the biggest adjustment.
Yeah, I want to brush on being a pin guy. You kind of like, starters, they know every fifth day, every sixth day, they're getting the call. As like a bullpen guy, like your day to day, because you don't know what leverage situation you're going to come in, what day you come in. Maybe you have 2 days off. Maybe you pitch back to back. So kind of just like making sure you're locked in every day. Like, how do you go about that?
And I will say before you go, to add to that too, is in the minor leagues, they do a lot of just like developing and like managing guys' workloads and stuff like that. Because they don't want to burn a guy out and they want to keep him healthy. Dude, the major leagues, like the job is to win. So it's like if you're a leverage guy and you're winning in the seventh and that's your inning to pitch, like you're throwing it. And then if it happens again the next night, like you're doing it. And potentially even again the next night. Like there isn't really as much of there is still workload management. Obviously, don't just throw everybody out there every time. But that's also different too when you get to the major leagues.
100%. I think there's a lot of orgs probably don't do the guys justice preparing them for that. I got my eyes got open to that in 2019 when I played indie ball because I played in Trois-Rivières, which was the Can-Am League, which is now a part of the Frontier League, and we had 23-man rosters and we were playing 6 games a week, so we had a 6-man bullpen for most of the year. For part of the year, we had 7. So you were throwing every day. Like you were throwing 3, maybe 4 games a week. And you just, if someone got hurt, we just ship them out and bring someone else in. They didn't really care, right? Like we're just trying to eat up innings. But so I got a taste for it then and I loved it. And then, last year with the Diamondbacks was a little bit different where it was kind of like, it was just a rotation of guys. Like this was your day to throw, and then the next day other guys would throw, and then the next day you would maybe throw, or maybe it would be pushed back one more day. In AAA, it was that way. And then in Vegas in AAA, it was a little more. The A's gave our manager a little more leeway of like, hey, try to win ball games. Like let these guys figure it out. But you could always have a day or 2 off whenever you needed it. Mm-hmm. But then when you get to the big leagues, like you said, like if it's your situation, you're throwing. It doesn't matter if you threw yesterday.
Right. Like if you got a pocket.
Stretch where we were playing really good ball in like late July, early August, mid-August, and every game we were playing was 3-1, 2-2. Like every game was tight, whether we were up or down. And it was like me, Mason, Otanez, and McFarland were pitching almost every day, it felt like.
Did you notice that you started doing anything?
I prefer that, but...
Did you notice that you were starting to do anything differently, like for recovery or like obviously a little bit of a different routine in terms of in the weight room, in the training room, post game, pre game? Like, did things change? Did you have some different resources that you hadn't like experienced before. You know, I know a lot of guys start getting exposed to like whether it's newer technology or, you know, using the BFR or using, you know, guys like start like, oh, I've never been needled before, but this is like amazing. Like was there anything that was different for you that kind of opened your mind a little bit?
I started using the BFR because pretty much all the relievers were throwing that on after they threw. I got into dry needling last year because of Sue. Yeah, in spring training, and then the D-backs did some of that. So dry needling is my favorite. And then, you know, getting in the hot and cold tub, sometimes post-game getting in the cold tub just to kind of cool the body down and try to get some sleep, because sleep's obviously the most important. And then taking advantage of having the extra trainers and the massage therapist there, because that stuff is much needed throughout the season. So did a lot of that. But yeah, BFR was probably the one new thing that I started using that was really, really helpful.
Yeah, so BFR, for everybody listening like doesn't know what BFR is. So BFR, it stands for blood flow restriction, and they basically like got it down to a science where there's recovery modes, strength modes, and I'm assuming you probably do like the 100% restriction up high at your arm, and it basically cuts off all blood flow for like 5 minutes. Is that how long you do it for?
Yeah, it's usually I think 5 minutes on and then 5 minutes off.
It's like a cuff. It's like a blood pressure cuff. That's what it looks like, and it's attached to a machine. We actually have one upstairs. Mal has one.
I'm gonna need that.
So, and what they do is it cuts off all, like, it gets pretty much all the blood out of your arm, and then for 5 minutes, you just let your body send new blood to the area, and then it shuts it off for another 5 minutes, and then, like, you can do recovery mode. It's big for, like, post-surgery, because you can't lift the same weight, but you can do, like, when I had wrist surgery, you know, you put it on your arm, and then you do different, like, you know, wrist curl exercises, bicep curls, and you do it with like 3 pounds. But with the way the blood flow restricts, you can still build muscle, even though you can't lift. Yeah. It's like pretty fascinating.
That doesn't sound street legal. just straight up.
Have you ever had any panic moments where you're like, this needs to relax, Dan's?
In my elbow?
Or just like, all the blood's gone, you can't move your hand anymore, and you're starting to panic. Yeah. That happened one of the first times.
Dude,
like,
your body's just like tensed up. It's like, oh my gosh, what do I do?
Yeah.
It's wild, but it works. A lot of our guys use it. It doesn't really. It's not like a crazy long, like, you don't really have to be active. Like, you can just lay down and you have it on, and then after your 10 minutes or whatever's up, then you move on. Yeah. Go about your day.
How similar is that to like the leg cast things?
Similar, but I think
the boots things?
The compression boots.
Yeah.
Similar, but I would say this is probably more effective.
Really?
It's the amount of uses that you can get out of it is like pretty remarkable.
When did this technology become?
Sounds like a new thing.
Yeah, well, like, I'm serious. Like, when did this technology come? I mean, you obviously mentioned it to him, like he's using it. So, like, when did it really start becoming a thing?
Like a surgery.
I got exposed to it when I had surgery in 2018 on my wrist.
Oh, so this has been.
But I mean, it's become really popular. Like, I felt like we were the first kind of people that were using it a little bit, and it's become really popular because I think like the science and everything's kind of gotten better, and like the use of it's gotten better over the last however many years. But I know a ton of people are using it. Guys use it in the weight room. It's on like a stand. It's like it almost looks like it should be in a hospital. Like, it's a monitor. It's a touchscreen monitor that it attaches to the cuff. Dude, it's
sick.
It's pretty.
It's
cool.
like the best. Like, it's got to be the best like in season thing to use. Like, if you're trying to maintain muscle but yet flush, like you're getting basically like a mini oil change of your blood.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, like that's what it sounds like. Like, the only thing close that me and Mitch will get to that.
Throw the BFR on, and you're going to be ready to throw again tomorrow.
Yeah. The only close thing Mitch and I get to that is when we lay on our arm wrong at night. And we wake up, we're like, oh no. Yeah. That's very, very interesting. Ferg, with you having so much success this year, and you know, the A's kind of playing some good baseball, the Athletics, the athletes. What are some of the things that you used? Just, I know you talked a little bit about Tay's involvement, but just like mentally, just kind of staying focused within the pen and handling some of the stressors within the game. Do you have like a one pitch approach, or kind of what's your mindset as you go through the game or the inning?
Well, let's start before the game, because Tay kind of got the Diamondbacks mental skills team, and then Tay kind of got me into mindfulness meditation. So I've got the 10% happier app on my phone. So every day before the game, I like go in and find like the nap room or something and meditate for 5 or 10 minutes, and that has been a game changer for me. Just to kind of slow down and quiet the mind, because you go in there and meditate and your mind's just like running, and then by the time I'm done, it's like, okay, now I can go clear mind, go play baseball, and just be relaxed. So that's been a huge help for me. And then in the bullpen, sometimes I'll try to kind of bring some of that mindfulness, practice some of that, where I'll like try to see a bunch of different colors or notice the different smells or the different sounds, and kind of like slow everything down so that I'm really trying to just be present. I've tried every type of, routine thing where it's like, take a breath or do this or that. And it's personally, I don't think that works unless you've done some mindfulness or you can actually be present. I think it's a Band-Aid in a sense, where like mindfulness is the underlying healer, if that makes sense. So that's been the biggest key. And then getting feedback from people. So one good example was this year, the Dodgers in town were up 6-2, I think it was, or 5-1, 4-run lead. I'm pitching the ninth because Mason's still on the IL, and get 2 outs. And there was one guy on. I ended up long at bat, walked a guy, brought up Ohtani, which is like the worst thing you could do.
Yeah, red flag.
Rule number
You
one.
walk the 9th hole to bring up Ohtani.
walk,
Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
And then, obviously threw a fastball up and in, and he hit it 119 off the stairs in the Coliseum in about 2 seconds. And the next day I was talking with one of the coaches. I was like, what do you got for me? And he's like, dude, you got to that moment. Like, this was the big moment, right? You versus Ohtani. And you went so fast. He's like, you just started speeding through that moment. He's like, just slow down next time. And so that was a big reminder of anytime I felt like the game was speeding up, it was just like, oh, because we're on the clock now, which kind of forces us to be faster. And he's like, the worst thing you do is step off or take a ball, just slow the game down. And it takes 2-3 seconds to just realize that. But I did that throughout the rest of the year, August and September. It wasn't like every outing, but every couple outings, a couple times, just, hey, slow this down. Move as slow as possible. Because when I start to get, anxious, I'll try to move faster. And it's like, just move as slow as possible. And I have plenty of time, and it's a little easier to execute the pitch when you're not in a rush. So
yeah. Well, and too, the strategy of if there are people on, you have a step off too. You can utilize a step off, especially if there's not, or you have 2 of them. You can disengage from the rubber and kind of reset yourself, grab the rosin bag, do whatever, grab whatever sticky stuff you've been using. We're not going to get into that. It's the only way you struck me out. We can talk about that later.
That's a question coming.
That's what I want to bring up.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. Maybe once we're not recording.
I got it on video, so we can put it out
So
there.
funny. Let's just go ahead and address
we can show that clip.
It's so funny when it happened. Mitchell texted me and goes,
You know what's so funny? Dude, what was so funny about that?
It was a good at bat.
What was so funny about that at bat?
Cheddar in there.
yeah.
I was throwing the ball as hard as I could.
Dude, I
Run through the microphone. You could hear me on TV, I'm sure.
Dude, I just remember the day before I had kind of made this decision. I was like, man, my swing the whole year has felt terrible. I'm just literally gonna pick my leg up as high as possible and see it high, let it fly. I'm just gonna go out there and have fun. Just I'm just gonna let it fly.
And then you saw
I hit a homer that night, the first game of the series against them. Hit a homer, had some other good at bats, some big hits, maybe a walk or something. I hit some balls hard. I'm like, man, I should have been doing this all along. This is why baseball is wild. The next night, I was same thoughts, same feelings, and I didn't know which way was up. Cameron.
Yeah.
I didn't know which way was up.
It was a tough outing.
I proceeded to strike out 4 times that night.
Yeah,
4
got
times.
the
Ferg was
that
four.
was
golden sombrero.
Ferg was the 4th punch of the night, and yeah,
I was just like
not
laying,
too thrilled.
I was just laying in bed and I was just itching for this moment, and I could just tell you guys just like locked eyes, and it was like the hardest thing to not just like laugh or smile.
It was kind of like the head nod.
Yeah,
Like,
it was just like tip of the
Yeah.
cap.
All right, here we go.
dude.
Yeah. What was it? You were so I was keeping track because me and one of my AAA teammates at the beginning of the year were like, all right, let's see who can get to 100 strikeouts this year between AAA and the big leagues. And you were my 99th. I was hoping you were 100.
100 would have been awesome.
Dude, don't tell me that.
100
That
would
would've
have
made me
100 would have been on the mantle forever.
Well, the worst
Yeah.
thing is the next day we're facing him again, and I'm due up to face him because it was like his righty pocket, and I get up there and it was a big spot in the game. I think it was maybe tied. It was tied or we were down 1. Ferguson, you got a guy on first. I like lay off a breaking ball down and away, and then maybe like a sinker in, and I'm like, dude, see it high, let it fly. Like I'm crushing this. Sinker, kind of middle down, double play. And I'm like, golly, dude. Like, you gotta be kidding me.
Exactly. I think I threw 3 strikes that outing or 2 strikes that outing. I think I walked a guy and it was a strike, but it was called a ball. And then I threw 1 strike to you and got a double play. And then the next guy fell behind again, 1-0 or 2-0, threw a strike and got an out. I was like, I just got 3 outs on 2 strikes. It's a pretty good day.
Dude.
Only
That's
7-8
freaking-
pitches.
Don't even need the BFR today.
Yeah. Honestly, let's switch it up. No BFR today.
Yeah, don't need it.
That is too freaking.
Did you have any like welcome to the MLB kind of like, oh crap, I'm here and these dudes are different? Maybe the Ohtani 119 off the
Yeah, I mean that was just like, okay. I mean, I get to be part of history since he's making history out here this year. But I think the biggest like moments were like pitching in Fenway and pitching in Wrigley because they're such iconic stadiums. And those were, I think it was the second time I got called up at the beginning of July. We went to Boston and our starter started to get in trouble in the 2nd inning, I think it was. So like first game of the series, I just sit down in the bullpen. I'm just relaxing, trying to figure out where I want to sit. And all of a sudden I'm in the game in the second inning with 1 out. Or maybe one out, 2 outs, I don't know. And I think it was 2 outs. First lefty hits a ground ball and we're shifted and he just squeaks it by and then it goes homer. like two strike slider, homer to lefty, homer to right, and then first pitch to Dominic Smith. This ball's like in off the plate, and he just whips his hands in and hits this ball 400 feet down the line. I was like, holy shit. All right, we got to eat some innings. We guys
time
got
to
to
lock
get some
in.
outs.
Yeah.
Work on
I
these
had to go
breathing
like 2
exercises.
1/3 on like 40 something pitches, and that's a heavy lefty lineup, so it's not ideal for me.
Yeah.
But I was just hoping. I was just making sure I was hoping I didn't have to go out for that 4th inning because I was like, if I have 4 ups, they're shipping me back to Vegas tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Get sent out of here.
What's the rookie tradition when you go to Wrigley? I think I saw a video of y'all in full uni or something.
Our whole team was in uni. We had 17 guys. 17 guys with less than a year of service time at the beginning of the year, so considered rookies. So yeah, we had 17 guys walk over there. Usually it's like 2 or 3, maybe 4.
What is it, like get coffee or something?
We walked over to Starbucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, they made the guys wear spikes too.
Click, click,
So we were click clacking down the road. Everyone's taking photos.
I was about to say the video. I was like trying to find Ferg, and there's just a mob of Oakland A's in Starbucks.
It's a little harder when there's I think we had 16 or 17 guys, which has got to be a
like
record.
a 13U travel team.
That is so funny. All right. The one I really want to dive into this because I know you have a lot of insight on this, and we can talk some personal things about you too. You don't have to share a ton because I know that like everyone holds their cards tight to their chest, but I know we've talked a lot for you about like you feel really confident with being able to get righties out just with the way your stuff plays. And then the adjustments that it takes because people don't like as a righty, like most guys tend to get one side out better than the other. Some guys have reverse splits, meaning like if they're a right-handed pitcher, they get lefties out better than they do righties. Like Luke Jackson was actually like that. He was kind of a reverse split guy. But like, what was the development for you like learning how to get lefties out more consistently? Because that was really probably the next biggest hurdle to like kind of really make a name for yourself and be able to pitch in kind of any opportunity and not kind of get that like right-handed pocket per se in the 7th or 8th.
Yeah. I mean, I give the A's credit for pitching me like in the last month. It was like I was going to be leveraged 7th or 8th, but they were trying to give me pockets of righties to help me have success, which I think is one of the nice differences about like AAA versus the big leagues of like, okay, now we're actually going to set you up for success, not just throw you out there. But yeah, I mean, the biggest hurdle is working on getting lefties out. That's still a hurdle. You know, if you look at my, like, if it was like OPS or not OPS plus, what's the pitcher one? ERA plus or something, like I absolutely dominated righties and I got crushed by lefties. So the next hurdle is like, how do I develop a splitter changeup type of thing to just get them a little bit off of everything else?
Yeah.
Going into lefties is scary. I do it, but you just see so many lefties just sit there and like pull their hands in and turn on balls, even in the playoffs. Like you see, I don't know, you see someone throw 96, 97 into a lefty, whether it's up and in, down and in, and they just drop their hands and can turn on anything. So it's really, I don't love doing it, but you know, something probably get better at going in at the right times and setting them up for that. So I mean, like Freddie, you know, Nestor throws that 93 in the honey hole.
Yeah.
And it's a walk-off grand slam. So, yeah, I think that's something I need to dive into a little more this offseason of like, where did I get my outs against lefties? Whether it was count-based, you know, being 0-0, or, you know, it was early in the count, late in the count. Was I having success if I got to 2 strikes? I don't know. I haven't really dove in yet, but
yeah.
See,
I find all that stuff interesting too, just because it's crazy thinking about going into my 9th season coming up, which is wild. I've learned a few things in my years, but like standard wise for a righty trying to get a lefty out, any 4-seamer kind of up and away is always like a pretty safe area for almost any lefty. Now there's some that are out there that like Soto's a really good high ball hitter for a lefty. Like he's not one that you really want to challenge up just because of his flatter swing and everything. But typically it's like if you can go up and away, in an ideal world, if you can go up and away, if you can backdoor a breaking ball, if you can throw some type of changeup or split with some depth going down and away, that's good. But to his point, like you have to throw in at some point because if they know where you're going, like you got to be able to keep them honest. So whether that's like, you know, running a cutter up and in on somebody's hands, or even we've talked about this, like it's not like you have to strike a bunch of lefties out. What you need to do is be able to induce like weak contact from a lefty.
Some rollovers.
Yeah, you need that just like little standard 4-3.
What's your defense work?
Just to help you get back to that pocket.
Right. Because I mean, and especially if you're pitching in a leverage situation, if you got 4 righties, I'm pretty sure the bullpen coach probably said, "Hey, this lefty's probably going to pinch hit the second or third hitter, so you need to be prepared for." How to get this guy out, I would imagine, right?
Yeah. Well, one of our starters, JP Sears, is lefty, and he's got normal splits where they're usually starting 8 or 9 righties against him, and all the lefties are on the bench. So it's like they never flip the lineup. So we played I think it was in San Francisco and in Houston, where I went into games after him, and it was like pinch hit lefty, pinch hit lefty, pinch hit lefty.
Yeah.
My goodness. Like, give me a righty. And, they're bringing everybody off the bench. They're bringing Yaz and Lamont Wade Jr. Like, they're bringing all of their lefties off the bench to face me. And I know that's going to be the game plan for teams, moving into next season. So it's, just kind of figuring out the right sequences, the right, balance to keeping them, off balance and putting balls on the ground for me. That way I can have at least a little success.
Yeah. I want to brush on that because I've always been curious about like how you've pitched this long, and then you're talking about potentially, don't have to give too many secrets away, incorporating some sort of like newer pitch or trying some different stuff. Like, does that just like, hey, I'm just going to grip it different ways and kind of see what feels good? Or like, how do you even go about like, okay, I've heard pitchers like throw the ball up in there and catch it, and they're like, all right, I think I can do something with that. Like, is that easy?
Yeah.
Or like, do you look at other pitchers throwing certain things, or like, how does that really work?
Well, yeah, I've never been able to throw a changeup, I've never really been able to throw a changeup, splitter, any of that. So last offseason, we started working on a splitter, but my fingers don't, split super wide. So I worked on it in spring, but then you go from like dry air in Arizona to humid air in Houston, Sugarland, like the first week of the year, and I couldn't get the ball to go through my fingers, so I just like stopped throwing it. But yeah,
I was gonna say he's saying all this, so the next time he faces you, he's gonna throw you a splitter down and away. First pitch is down and away split.
I mean, if I could land that, I didn't throw any splitters to righties, but it was fun when I like that outing in Fenway. I started throwing the splitter like 2 weeks before in AAA again. I was like, I got to start throwing this. Like, I have to have a little bit of wrinkle in there. And I don't know who it was, but maybe it was Devers or someone else in that lineup were like, I just threw them an 0-0 or like a random 1-0 splitter, and they swung and missed by like 2 feet, and they were like confused, like looking around. Like I had someone else do that too this year because it wasn't on the game plan. So it's kind of fun when you're out there and you just throw something random and they're like kind of looking around confused.
Nothing worse.
I had a couple of those, and that was fun.
Nothing worse. You like get out on it and you're like literally cussing your hitting coach on the way. Like you're the third out and you're looking at him like, throw a changeup. He doesn't throw right on right changeups, dude. What are you? Y'all's report sucks. It's like how would we know?
He throws it 1% of the time, and you're that 1% this time.
Oh, dude, I've been there.
Yeah.
They're always like, yeah, Dansby, this guy, he does have a changeup. It says 1%, so it means it's probably 100% to you. Like you always get it, so you're gonna get it.
Even if it is 1 to 2%, you still have to respect it.
Yeah, but it's funny. So now that we're on like more going into the lens of like analytics, what do you feel that analytics? And I know that during 2020, obviously COVID stuff happened, and you're kind of like working out on your own. And I feel like, if I remember correctly, was like a kind of a big time for you because I feel like you kind of like really dove into the pitching stuff a little bit more when it came to like grips or percentages, or like, hey, my slider's really good. Guys aren't hitting it. Like I need to throw it a lot, right? What has been your experience with it? And yeah, like let's just kind of dive into that.
Yeah, I mean, 2020 was in spring training with the Dodgers, minor league camp. But I mean, I threw, I don't know, a couple bullpens and then in a couple games and like live BPs, and they were like, hey, your repertoire is just not right for you. They're like, your four seam just doesn't have enough rides, so you need to throw sinkers. Your cutter, which I was only throwing in the bullpen, like could be your best pitch. And then stop throwing a curveball, throw a slider. So like literally just like you're doing this all wrong. So I got to
changing
start
your entire arsenal.
Yeah, so I was with them for like 3 or 4 weeks, right? Before COVID shut us down, and they completely changed what I threw. That's something that like, the Dodgers do so well and are so good at attention to detail of like, I'm just some random minor league free agent that they signed, and they're like, hey, you should do this, this, and this, and showed me the Edgertronic and kind of explained why and what I should be doing. So kind of what Dansby was saying, I was kind of on my own that season, just working out in Sacramento and training, and kind of started to get working on that. And then 21, I ended up signing with the Braves, another team that's kind of in on the analytics, and they were the ones who like taught me the sweeper in 22 spring training. And they're like, you should throw this all the time. They're like, just throw it, and kind of showed me that my fastball is really inefficient, and then started trying to work on that, which kind of made my sweeper worse, but made my fastballs better. So there's always a give and a take with analytics on like how you're going to improve your stuff. We talk about this in the pen. It's like if you chase one thing, you're going to give up something else. And I'm sure it's that way with hitting. Like if you start thinking about fixing one thing, you're going to probably lead to an issue somewhere else.
Right. Break down for just, our average normal viewer that's obviously into baseball. Break down a little bit of like some of the pitching metrics and like what's the difference in a sweeper and a slider? and you know,
Okay.
not necessarily a 4-seam and a 2-seam, but a 4-seam with good ride versus, you know, why would they want you to throw more sinkers as opposed to a 4-seam because your 4-seam doesn't have enough ride and things like that.
Yeah, I think analytics, there's so much into it, and there's no absolutes, which I think people are starting to figure out, because it was like, hey, chase this 4-seam with ride. So 4-seam with ride would be like Luke Weaver in the playoffs for everyone that was watching. Like, everyone swung underneath his 4-seam because it just like never came down. It just stayed really flat. And then you have a guy like Clay Holmes, who's got a big old sinker and has a lot of depth to it, so guys hit it on the ground a lot. So, and then you have Tay's getting some ice. I don't know if you guys how noise canceling these are. She says sorry and hi. And then obviously the sweepers become huge, where, you know, I think it's funny when people get mad about like, oh, it's just a slider versus like, why are we calling a different slider a different name? It's like we called a 4-seam and a 2-seam different pitches forever. Why wouldn't we call a slider and a sweeper different pitches? But a slider is usually a little bit harder, a little bit tighter, less movement, less horizontal movement. And then your sweeper is going to have a little more lift to it and a lot of horizontal break. So again, Clay Holmes is a good example. Blake Trinan's a great example of in the playoffs, just nasty sweepers, big old sinkers. Yeah, I mean, you can nerd out because, you know, they know how to like what metrics work, like what hitters can't hit metric wise, and then are teaching all their guys how to chase those metrics. I know it's kind of boring, but I can nerd out on pitching analytics for hours.
All right, so to dive into a little bit more of the pitcher metrics, because it's become big for offense and obviously the pitching stuff. Just to kind of like break it down a little bit more. So sliders, like you said, it's more of a vertical pitch, right? It's more of a hold its line and then go down as opposed to a cross, right?
I mean, yeah, it's just less movement.
Correct. Whereas a sweeper is breaking horizontally the width, if not more, of the plate. And it's going to hold more, typically, it's going to hold more of its plane like this as opposed to like that.
Probably what people, like old school people, think of like an actual slider. Like when you play MLB The Show and you hit slider, that's what you're expecting it to do, is like it's really a sweeper
versus the bottom just falling off.
Yeah. So
or just it being a tighter spin.
It's like different axis or like an axis, like in terms of a graph. If you think about it in terms of a graph,
which is a different spin on the ball, right? Essentially.
Yeah.
Like what pressure you're putting. Maybe Ferg could dive into that. What pressure you're putting on the ball versus, but like seriously, like that's got to be a no.
Yeah, that's part of it.
It's freaking science,
it's like
dude.
Pressure. It's how you kick it. It's how you tilt the axis. I mean, there's the lingo gets kind of confusing for people that have never heard of it. But yeah, you're right. Like, I mean, people threw sweepers back in the day. If you go watch some old video of like one of my coaches last year in AAA was Doug Drabeck, and he's like, "I show you my sweeper." He's like, "I just called it a slurve or something, you know, like just a big old slider." But now we just put names to it because we know the metrics and kind of have to define them so people know what we're talking about. But yeah, like sweepers, I mean, you have the outlier guy. Like I'm obviously never faced, you know, like Blake Trinan, but guys swing at his when they're in the left-hander's batter's box. And I don't know if you just can't see it, but a lot of time sweepers you just run out of barrel. Like you see it breaking, you know it's breaking. You just don't know where it's going to end, the good ones. And then like a slider is like, oh, it looks like a fastball, and all of a sudden you swing and miss at it. So like sweepers don't usually have as big of a swing and miss rate, but they have weak contact, where tighter sliders have less or more swing and miss, but when they get hit really hard. Like a little hanging, spinning slider in the middle of the zone is usually the one that gets hit the farthest.
Yeah. Now you're throwing sweepers, right?
I'm throwing, yeah. It's not as big as it's not a really big sweeper, but yeah, it's more of a sweeper.
So when you started doing that, how hard was it for you to find like your start point, like where you wanted the ball to start?
Honestly, it was easy at first. The hardest part is when you start to lose it and then you actually start thinking about how to do it.
Yeah.
When they're just like, hey, just grip it and rip it. I'm like, oh, this is easy. I was playing in Mississippi and Georgia in 22, and there's humidity and the ball's just dancing. Like, it just comes out naturally. And then, we can dive into this too, but like I improved my efficiency on my fastball from like 55, 65% to 80% going into 2023, which made my fastballs better. But then I couldn't spin the slider. Part of that was like I was playing at elevation in Reno. So there's drier air and thinner air, so the ball doesn't move as much. But then I just completely lost my sweeper with the combination of like now wasn't stuck in so much supination and had elevation, all these other factors, and kind of like it just wasn't quite the same pitch that it was before. Mm-hmm. So,
dude, all that stuff is so interesting, and the amount of details that go into being good is like is crazy, because he's sitting there talking about like, all right, knowing that if you're going to be in elevation, so if you're playing in Arizona, you're playing in Colorado, certain places with drier air, the ball's going to move differently, right? And in Wrigley, when the wind's blowing, 25 miles an hour a certain way, like that changes things. And then he was talking about supination, like certain guys are natural supinators, which is going, I guess, towards your body, like your palm going towards your body.
Struggle to get to like pronation, which would be this way. Like I can't even like turn my palm all the way.
Which is why you struggled with throwing changeups, because changeup is pronation. Changeup is going this way. Yeah. So if you struggle with pronation, then like that's why they've started to do a lot of diving in on that too with pitchers of like, are you a natural supinator or pronator? And it's like, if you're a natural supinator, like stop trying to throw the two seam and the changeup. Like you're going to throw fours, cutters, and sliders because everything's already going that way. And dude, this is why I find so fascinating and what I love about the analytic world and development, because I feel like it really helps maximize what guys' potential can be, because they're allowing them to do what they're good at. But there are still some of the like old school principles of like, all that's great, but if you can't execute pitches or throw them where you want them or be able to get ahead of batters, like you're going to get hit anyways.
Well, that's what I was going to say is like how much of it is like you're in it, like you deal with it too from a hitting analytic perspective. Like how much of it is like as a pitcher, you kind of got to have this, you have to have this dog mentality of sometimes it's, I'm just going to go get an out. Like it is what it is. Like forget the analytics. Like I'm going to challenge him here or there, just having the confidence in your stuff to go perform. I mean, it's just kind of, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I'll continue on that of like, I feel like one of the reasons I had a lot of success was I was freaking 0-2, 1-2 almost every hitter, especially to righties. To lefties, I was nibbling a little more because of the, lack of success against them. But like, I mean, at Dansby, I'm sure we can talk about like how hard it is to hit when all of a sudden you just step in the box and you're 0-2, 1-2, and now you're like, okay, now I have to play defense. Mm-hmm. And I just
pulled up for you right now.
That was kind of like just the mindset of like, step on these guys' throats and just give them something to hit early and hope they aren't ready for it. And once you get them to 2 strikes, you can put them away.
Dude, I'll pull it up for you right now this season. Like what 0-2, 1-2 looks like for me in 2024.
I swear this dude's always an 0-2, 1-2.
Yeah, you stress me out.
Yeah, well, that's probably why.
I think I had him 0-2, 1-2 right away too.
Yeah, we're about to see with the analytics.
Yeah.
Would shock us.
Yeah. I mean, this is actually not. Hold on. Let me reset all these filters. Okay.
What you been looking at?
I was like,
I feel like 15 filters deep right now.
He's getting really granular in there.
Maybe this is why I hit 244s, because
you said
it.
Yeah, he's got Wrigleyville night.
I mean, on
right-handed.
when I was 0-2,
it's 78 degrees exactly.
0-2, I hit 200, which is not bad, really and truly.
What's the league average?
I don't know what league average would be. This is literally just me.
Oh,
hold on, guys.
Okay, click the other tab.
Yeah, click the other one. 194.
Ah, so you're above average. There we go.
194 with a 500 OPS. So, which is low. And so it's like if he's an 0-2, 1-2 most of the time, then I mean when 0-2 or 1-2 for me this year, it was 212 with a 496 OPS, which literally like is not good at all. And if he's in those counts, he's going to have more success.
Right.
Look, he's looking it up right now too.
Yeah, I don't know if I have that.
Oh, I'm on our.
You gotta click.
But like, all right, so like here's the thing. If I'm in 3-1, we'll reverse it. If I'm in 3-1, this year I hit 308 with a 1100 OPS. So you think about the difference in like if I'm ahead versus if he's ahead.
Right.
Yeah. Pitcher
makes
behind,
all
it
the
was
difference in the
273 with a 900 OPS. Pitcher ahead was 216 with a 530. So it's like the old school of like get ahead, get strike one, like will forever be
dominant.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was all hitters in 2 strike counts. I think they hit like under 100 on me this year. Because it was like in the little like game notes report, it would be like it was like 10 for 100 or 10 for 103 or something when I got to 2 strikes. So it was like, and if I faced, let's see, batters faced 100 and a little over 200, 210-ish. And if I got to 2 strikes on over half of them, that's success right there. But then if I got half those guys to 2 strikes and those guys are only hitting 100, well, now I just got the other half to worry about with, guys that are either swinging early or I'm getting behind on. So,
yeah, no, that's a big thing. It's like when you're struggling, typically you either swinging at bad pitches or you're in 2 strike counts a lot, when you're scuffling for a month or whatever. And so it's like, how do you learn to combat that? And same with him. It's like, okay, well, I struggled for the last week or so. Well, maybe it's because you're falling behind. If you're falling behind, then you're making it harder on
you're
yourself.
literally flipping the odds for each player.
Yeah.
Ferg, what's your relationship like? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, kind of what Dansby was saying was like the balance of the analytics versus the old school of like, doesn't matter how good your slider is if you never throw it in the zone, right? Like once you can keep getting, like once you go up a level, guys are going to stop swinging. You go up another level, guys are going to swing a little bit less. So it can work at a certain level, but once you get to the better and the big leagues, like you're not just going to be able to throw sliders out of the zone and get guys to chase. You have to be able to throw your good pitches in the zone and get outs in the zone, which is a huge difference than at any other level where you don't always have to throw the ball in the zone to get outs.
Yeah, and I was kind of going to touch on that a little bit of just your relationship with, like, obviously your pitching staff, like bullpen coaches, but as well as, like, catchers, and your relationship with the guys that catch you. Like, how much goes into not only getting ahead, but how much are you guys on the same page, or you feel like, they call something, you're like, all right, yeah, that's kind of where I was thinking, or how much are you guys different? And just talk about the relationship of pitchers and catchers. Because it's more important than what people think.
Yeah, it's very important. Shea Langliners is our, everyday catcher. Guy catches a lot of ball games. So, as the year developed and he was catching me more, it was a lot not easier, but we were so much more on the same page because I kind of just do stuff randomly sometimes, which is good because you can't really game plan it. Like I might just randomly throw something in a weird count. Like I might randomly just throw a cutter up and into a righty because I think there might be a hole there. And I would tell him these little things and like he would start to call these along the way of like, oh, he usually likes to do this in this situation, or I think he should do this. And we got so much more on the same page that last 6-8 weeks of the year. It made it a lot more fun as a pitcher because I'm not shaking as much and we're not running into issues with the pitch clock. And then he kind of like learns what you can do and can't do and starts to challenge you and be like, hey, I think you should do, like I think we went sinker away to Julio Rodriguez late in the year where like I would almost never go sinker away just because, but we had thrown a fastball away and he fouled it off. He's like, I think we go sinker away here. He's got no chance. And like once catchers start to know you and like play the game with you, they can start to challenge you, kind of push you to like lean on your strengths, but also like, execute some other pitches in spots where you're not as comfortable doing it, which is really helps you, get even better.
Yeah, no, I mean that's so huge because you see it all the time, right? Like when you're not on the same page with your catcher, it causes a lot of frustration, and it's another thing that really challenges like the mindset and the mental because you're like, you just kind of like, all right, fine, I'll throw that pitch even though you don't want to. You don't have as much conviction or belief behind it, and then all of a sudden you're behind in counts because you're not on the same page with him, and then we know what happens when pitchers are behind in counts. Like the numbers are better for the hitters. So being able to have a guy that can call to your strengths but also randomize it enough to be able to know, because so much of it goes into like a catcher and a pitcher too, but they need to know like, is this guy aggressive early? Okay, if he's aggressive early, we're going to throw more of something that he's not as good at hitting with. Or, hey, this guy's not aggressive. Just come right after him. Just throw a sinker. Just throw a sinker right over the middle of the plate. He's not swinging. Yeah. Strike one. And then we can go to work. And that stuff is so important. And it's like the little details that people don't necessarily like understand as much that lead to teams or players having success and other ones not,
Okay, and to that point, talk about the importance of like defensively Short being involved in that, like in that process of being with the game plan, because as people like, the people who love baseball understand like there is a string of people who work together and that have to know and know the strategy and then know like where you're supposed to stand, where you're supposed to go, how you're going to face guys, how you're going to pitch to guys. Like just talk about that a little bit.
And Ferg can probably back me up on this too. The analytics, like when it comes to defense positioning, is top tier in the big leagues compared to the minor leagues, right? And that's why it's so hard to compare numbers sometimes in the minor leagues, because the rule of thumb for me generically is guys that throw four seamers at the top of the zone and a breaking ball off of that typically get balls pulled on the ground more, like pull side. Mm-hmm. So because you kind of, for the four seam, you got to get the barrel out a little bit more. You're not trying to like scoop under it like you would with a sinker or two seam, which typically leads to more balls getting pulled towards like the 6-holer down the line. So defenses knowing that, you set up based on, okay, we got a guy that's throwing with good velo at the top and a breaking ball. They're probably going to pull it more often than they're going to hit like a ground ball back up the middle. And that's also why you play your second baseman close to the bag. With guys that throw sinkers, they either beat it right into the ground to the third baseman, or because they're trying to get under it, it typically funnels more towards the middle of the field. So you kind of base things off of that. And like when they build all their analytic systems and like their algorithms off of it, it's basically saying, hey, this guy pulls sliders on the ground a ton. So you're going to be playing plus pull, or, we do a number system. 1 straight up, 2 is pull, and 3 is like shift pull. We can't shift anymore, but like I'm playing in the hole, like I'm way in the hole. And then you kind of, read the game off of that. But it's so interesting because if you can execute based on what the defensive positioning has put up for too, like the amount of outs you can get as a defense and as a pitching staff go through the roof. And that's what the best teams do. To me, that's what the Dodgers do so well, is they put their guys in a position to succeed. And you look at really the best defensive groups, like we have a really good defensive group. We do the same thing. Like we got a lot of great infielders. We have a great outfield, and they put a lot of time and effort into making sure we are in the right position, because I know I'm going on and on because I love this stuff. Like
I got some more.
a guy like Ferg that may be throwing, let's say, a two-seamer and a slider, or a sinker and a slider at 96, 98, also may have a different spray chart than the guy that's throwing the sinker slider at 90, 92, right? And so you start, I pull out my card out of my back pocket. I have like the master sheet where it's got everybody for every pitcher, so I know where I'm supposed to play, because different arm slots, different sides of the rubber, different velocities, pitch shapes, all that kind of stuff, like that all goes into it.
So I say that to ask you, how much does a base runner getting on affect that defensive plan?
A lot, because you always got to give to get, like he was just talking about with pitching stuff. So if a guy's on, you obviously soften your defense to play more double play depth, which you're giving up more room behind you.
So I asked that to ask, when a guy gets on base, how much do you see the defensive numbers take a downturn?
It's actually an interesting thing that I would like to see, because I base it a lot on who's hitting and running too. Because if the guy's not a steal threat, I don't feel like I need to be as close to the bag, and I can maybe get a little bit more depth. Or, for instance, if Trey Turner's hitting and I sit there and I just say, well, why would I play double play depth? What are the odds that we turn double play on Trey Turner anyways? Why not play back normal depth and take my out? Because the odds of us turning a double play are not great. So I'd rather take away that than give up something. Because I mean, he was just saying, like, and this is not me throwing shade at anybody, but like in his outing at Fenway, a ball just sneaks by. And it's like, well, if maybe we were in a better positioning, we get that out, and my year looks different. My ERA is different. Like,
Yeah.
it's real.
Well, and I say that to ask Ferg, how much does a runner getting on affect your game plan towards, because you obviously know, like he knows, right? If I throw certain pitches to certain people, the odds of them, like where they're going to hit it hard, where they're most likely to miss, like all that changes, right? So, and that's why when people say baseball is boring, I'm like, you're just not looking at the details. Yeah, because how much does a runner on change what you do, especially with pitch clock?
It definitely changes. It depends on, I mean, like you said, baseball's boring if you don't really think about it at this level. If you don't start, if you start to play the game along with like who's playing and the manager and all the situations, like it gets really entertaining. And when guys get on, it just puts more pressure on everything. It just, like, for me, I'm fairly quick to the plate, and we have Shea, who's got a good arm. So
no.
a lot of
Shea's
times,
got the best arm that I've ever seen from a catcher. Like, dude, it is.
it's incredible. Yeah, it's so fun to watch. Like, my goal is basically with that combination is to deter people from even trying to steal. I don't really know what the numbers were on me, but over the last 2 years, I've just tried to be quick enough to the plate because I don't want you to try to steal. Because when people start to try to steal, you have to think a lot more as a pitcher, right? You have to be like, okay, now I really have to change my times. I have to pick over a little bit more. For me, I'm like, I don't really want to pick over a ton, and I really just want to vary my holds a little bit here and there, right? Like, keep it really simple and then be quick to the plate. That way I can just keep executing. But like you said, if I get a guy on first and a lefty's up, well, now it kind of takes away some of the pitches I can throw. I can't just I can't just throw a sinker away because now my shortstop's playing way up the middle. Plus he's in, so I'm giving him a base hit if he wants it. Basically, if I throw certain pitches,
And with the guy holding him on,
he can just slap it through the hole.
Right, and the first baseman's holding the guy on, so the 4-hole is huge now. Freaking drive a
both
semi
holes are
truck
huge.
to it.
See, I ask good questions. This is stuff I think about.
And to his point too, if he wasn't diligent about someone stealing, right? Like the game this year was harder to score runs, and you saw offense down, and that's why stolen bases are going up, and that's partially with the rules, bigger bases, all that kind of stuff. But if it used to be sit back and slug, right? Sit back and slug. That's how you're going to score your runs. But by not only putting pressure on the defense to have to play in a little bit of a different spot or whatever, if someone steals second off of you and then all of a sudden there is that little bleeder broken bat, that's a run. As opposed to maybe it's first and second or first and third and I still got a chance to get out of this inning without any runs. Now all of a sudden that's a run. And then the train starts going, and
Which is what makes somebody like our boy Pete so electric.
Right.
Because he has the ability to do stuff like it. Just the game, when you start breaking down like little details and stuff like that, like it's very intricate. And you talked about it originally, man, I don't know when we talked, but like the pitch clock. Are you a fan of that? Not a fan of that? I think it's like, how I look at it is I feel like it's a huge advantage to the offense. That's how I look at pitch clock.
I think it's almost a non-factor.
Really?
Most of the time, like, there's a couple times where if you're not on the same page with the catcher, or like I'm just shaking, and then there's a couple times where I just keep shaking because I'm like shaking to a pitch. One time was like 3-2 to Kyle Tucker, and I wanted to throw a sinker or splitter or something, and like I just kept shaking, and it was getting down to 2 seconds, so I just threw, and my catcher kind of just had to guess what was coming. It's just not ideal.
Classic.
And I just threw I think it was a sinker, and I threw like a slower sinker, and he popped it up, and it was like, okay. And then another time with Shea behind the plate, I was shaking. I just came set, and he just came bolting out of he ran to the mound. He's like, whoa. Time. So those are the few times where the pitch clock really matters. But we've been doing it for 3 years now, so the pitch to pitch doesn't usually make a huge impact. And I like playing 2.5-hour games. I like the rhythm of the games.
The rhythm's way better.
The rhythm
of the game
is faster,
way better,
smoother.
And you dabbled in the minors before.
Yeah,
right?
Because he was like our first guy that talked to us about it.
That's what I've noticed too, is the big difference in like the younger guys actually handle it better than the guys that have been playing, like, because I played with it less than what I played like regular baseball, and so it definitely is an adjustment, and hitters have less time to get in the box than a pitcher's got a full, 18 seconds with somebody on. They have a full 18 seconds. But we have to be ready by 9. They have to be ready by really 18.
Well,
You know what I mean? So
I don't know that it's an advantage for the hitter. I think it's an advantage for the base runner.
for the base runner, it can be. It's not as It's not exploited as much as you think, though.
No, on either side, because you're limited on your picks. You have to still, hold it and hope he's like leaning at that time if you're going to pick him off because of the clock. I haven't really seen it happen. It's not as big of an impact. I think the biggest impact, and the one thing that would be nice that's never going to change, is like pitchers can't stop the clock out if nobody's on.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So there's like every once in a while, it's like you kind of just want a little bit more time. And I thought the umpires did a good job of like, if I was ever like covering a base at first or, a foul ball or something and I was near one, they're like, hey, you need a second? I'd be like, yeah, just give me a second to like take a breath as I'm walking back to the mound versus like starting it right away. And every ballpark's a little different. It's funny how sometimes like all of a sudden everyone's a little bit tighter at a certain ballpark because that person's starting the clock, 1 second earlier.
Oh yeah, that's been a thing.
That's
Little
the
ballpark
thing,
home factor right there.
Yeah. So that's always like that's where it can play a little bit of an impact, but overall, I think it's just better for the game. Like the speed, the 2.5 hour game with some rhythm to it is so much more fun.
Have you heard any feedback on the challenge system that they?
Oh, I've been a part of the challenge system for a while.
Say what?
I've been doing the challenge system for a while, and that's gonna be interesting. I think they got the strike zone better this year than last year because I got to experience it the last 2 years in AAA. So in 2023, the zone was so low, like it was like basically anything above the belt was a ball, which really impacted anyone who was throwing fastballs at the top of the zone.
Mm-hmm.
Like a good friend of mine from 23, Zach McAllister, who was with the Cleveland now Guardians from like 2012 to 2018. He had got, battled some injuries, and he was now like a sidearm guy at 90, 94. And he would just pepper the top of the zone and just keep calling ball. And it would like, if he had that part of the zone, he'd have so much more success.
Yeah.
So coming to this year, they raised it up. So the bottom was a little bit higher, the top was a little bit higher, and it was a little bit better from my experience in AAA for like the 8 weeks I was down there. So they're starting to get the zone right. Because what I said before in 23 was like, they can't do the challenge system until the zone's somewhat like the big league zone, because it was just such a drastic difference. So I think they're on the right path of getting the zone right. And now it's just going to be a matter like, so that's just ABS zone. But when you get to the challenge system part, I think it'd be good for keeping umpires honest. Like, I'm sure Dansby's had an experience with like this umpire's just calling a ball, half a ball off or a ball off the whole time. And he's just screwed. Like all the hitters are in bad counts because of it. And if you can just challenge a couple of those early in the game, the umpire has to adjust or he's just going to get kind of embarrassed by having it the game stop and it pop up on the board every couple pitches.
Well, and the thing about that too, that I've actually talked to one of the umpires before about this was, I mean, it's hard enough as us on hitters, like seeing all these different arm slots and sides of the rubber, and breaking balls are moving more than they ever have, and so are fastball, all this kind of stuff, and they're seeing every pitch and every different type of thing. Like the zone looks way different for them than it's ever looked before too, and so like I feel like there could be a way non-challenge wise of like them being able to get feedback in game of like, oh my gosh, like I am big on the outside corner today, or dang, I'm not seeing that those pitches at the top of the zone I keep calling balls are actually strikes. Like I'm not seeing the top of the zone very well. But I mean, I definitely give them a little bit of grace on that. It may not seem like it on TV, you know, when I'm, you know, making my comments, but I mean, it's hard, dude. It's different than it's ever been. Balls are moving harder, faster, and more than they ever have. And
they're really good. Umpires are really good. I mean, there's probably some out there that you can disagree with, but overall they're really good. It's just that when they get it wrong, everyone can see it because it's on TV and it has the little strike zone. And I think that's like MLB's like way of kind of priming it is like this year on all the cast, you could see like they pop up the strike zone and they let the ball come in and you would see it. And that's like them preparing everybody for that to be kind of a normalized thing during the game, I think.
Propaganda, fake news.
What was that?
Propaganda.
Just priming us. That way it's not such a big, drastic thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I think there's ways for umpires to get feedback, whether it's like getting to hear whether, you know, when they're missing pitches or, you know, they've talked about letting the umpire know what pitch is coming, which I don't know what your thoughts are on that. Don't love it. It's an interesting one.
Don't love it.
Have you heard about that one?
Yeah, don't love it.
Why don't you love it? Wouldn't it help them, like, because, you know, they may be thinking, I mean, it's kind of hard to be.
I think that there comes into assumptions both ways, though. Like, oh, that I know he's throwing a slider. Oh, it definitely came back. And it's like, well, maybe it didn't. You know, like, oh, there's just some assumptions that go into it. Catchers are so good at catching and making it look like they're strikes and all that kind of stuff now. I know we've been keeping you a while. The last thing I want, just basically you give us some parting words of wisdom. What would be your biggest advice that you've kind of learned through your journey that you would share with other people?
I think one thing is learn as much as you can, but learn how to filter information. Because like you can get like, there's a ton of wisdom out there. There's tons of podcasts where you can sit here and learn about the game and faith and whatever you want to learn about, you can learn about. But you also have to learn about like how to filter out what's useful for you, what can help you. I think that's a really important thing. And then one thing that I'm gonna circle back to, because you said this early, and it's something I think we talked about in spring training, was like the illusion of control. And you were talking about how like in game one against us, you were leg kicking and it was like, oh, I feel great. But then the next day you're like, I'm going to try to do that again. And you're chasing that feeling. And it's like, I can't feel that. Right. So it's like one thing that helped me a lot this year was just like remembering that you don't really have control over a lot or pretty much anything in this game when it comes to results of like, no matter what, whether you have a good day or a bad day, like you can't try to like, you know, close down and try to control every aspect of it because there's just so much out of our control. You can go out there and you just gotta play hard and do your best and kind of let both the good and the bad roll and kind of be as consistent as possible. Does that make sense? That's a weird one that I kind of have run with.
No, I mean, and Dansby's talked about that throughout the podcast as well. Just
surrendering over, like. It's such a hard thing to do, but it's so important just, I think, for our own well-being and peace of mind. And like I said, your duty in life and the game of baseball, whatever it is you're doing, is to like literally just do your best, learn from it, and move on. Like give yourself grace. Don't beat yourself up over it. Enjoy each moment. And usually success does come with that, but it's just the better way to live. It's more fulfilling. It leads to better things. And you're not up at night till 4 a.m. trying to figure out why you can't hit a freaking fastball at the top of the zone. You know, you just kind of pick your stuff up and do it again the next day.
Is it a sweeper? Or
is it a sweeper or a slider? I don't
know what he's
What are the metrics?
What other tabs do I have?
If I get down to 0-2, I'm hitting 180. If I get down to 0-2, oh my gosh, I'm screwed.
First at bat.
Is he going to throw that 1% changeup this at bat?
Yeah, right.
Is he going to pull that thing out?
Ferg, we appreciate you,
man. Dog. Thanks, homie.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah,
Maybe
man.
we can do this in person one day.
Spring training.
Yeah, February.
Yeah, spring training. We'll see you.
February. We'll bring it back around.